Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on I.O. Live. I'm Timothy Jordan.
And I'm Emily Fortuna. If you can't be here this week at I.O., don't worry, we're here for you. Visit g.co/io/live to watch and rewatch the keynotes and sessions, plus all the exclusive interviews and demos our team of Googlers will be bringing you over the next days.
First up, we welcome Manuel Bronstein, VP of Product Management here at Google, to talk to us about the next generation Google Assistant. Manuel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
All right, let's go really big picture for a moment. When you think about how the Google Assistant changes people's everyday lives for the better, what does it look like?
Yeah, so when we thought about the product, we wanted to build, our mission is to be the best way to get things done. And when we say best, we think about seamless, fastest, easiest way to get things done. And if you think about our world, in some ways it's getting more complex, right? Every time you try to do something, you need to think about not only what you want to do, but the how. And if we do our job right and we're investing to make it happen, you're going to be able to go from what do I want to get done to getting it done without having to worry about the how in many ways. And our hope is that that saves you time. And we all know how important it is for all of us to get a little bit more time to do all the things that we care about. So we're very proud to be investing in making the product the best way to get things done, in many ways to give users time back.
So the assistant is becoming more and more personalized. How does that help us as well?
So think about, when people think about an assistant, they're thinking about a product that it's gonna learn from them, that it's gonna understand what they're saying. And in order for the assistant to understand what you're saying, it needs to understand your world, right? If I say, call my wife, it needs to know that my wife is Ariana and what number to call. If I say, set an appointment for my kids, it should understand who my kids are. So when the assistant starts getting to know you, or it even knows where is home, where is work, so that I can know, hey, when I'm asking it to give me a direction, I say like, drive me work. It can understand that. The system becomes more useful because you can speak to it in a more natural way. You don't have to think about addresses or you don't have to think about commands. You speak to it the same way you would speak to a friend, and then it will understand what you're trying to do and help you get it done.
What is your favorite new feature that Assistant announced today, and why?
I mean, it's really hard to pick a favorite.
Sure.
The team worked really, really hard on many of the things that we announced today. I think that, when you think about the promise of the assistant being the best way to get things done, when it starts getting really fast, and what we announced with the next generation assistant, one of the key things about it, and we're saying it in a very, proud way, which is, imagine that it starts understanding you so fast, so quickly, then speaking to your phone is faster than tapping. Or that tapping your phone is going to feel slow. That's when you know that you hit something that could change user behavior and get people to start, embedding themselves into this product, because it's actually becoming very simple, but also very fast and very efficient in helping you get your tasks done.
That's great. So in the past couple of years, we've seen Assistant play a much larger role in homes and phones, and now in driving.
Right.
So can you tell us about the experience for drivers and what that's like?
Yeah, when you think about using your voice and being hands-free, actually, the car is a perfect environment for it, right? Hopefully, people are driving and they're looking at the road, they're not looking at their phones, they're not touching the screens.
You don't mean hands-free driving?
Hands-free driving, no, it's a hands-free phone. Yeah.
Not on the phone. Yes.
Correct. So when you come think about it, actually, the car is one of the places where the system can be even the more helpful, right? But the car is a hard environment, right? Because there's, if your windows are down, there's a lot of noise, you may lose connectivity and so forth. But one of the things that we started thinking about is, let's start from the user, and what is that thing that you're trying to get done when you're in your car? And there are mainly three things, right? You're trying to navigate from point A to point B. You want to get to the place, hopefully fast and safe. You also want to make sure that when you're in the car, you can get entertained, right? So you want to listen to music or podcasts or radio, right? And then, of course, you sometimes want to communicate, right? You want to make a phone call, you want to receive a text message or send a text message. And think about doing all these things with your hands while you're driving. It's probably not the right way to do it. It's not safe. But when you start doing each of these scenarios, like driving from point A to point B, communicating or listening to media, and you can control that with your voice, and it understands exactly what you're trying to get done, then the product becomes very magical because it's really solving a real need and a real problem in an environment that needs that help.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk to us about how the next generation of the Google Assistant will change the way that people will interact with it?
Yeah, so if you think about, when you start forgetting about the how, and you start worrying about what is it that you want to do, you start relying on the product in a very, different way. That's when the behavior change starts to happen, right? So in the first phase of the assistant, it should be very responsive to you, right? It should understand what you're saying and then help you get it done. As the product starts learning from you, it can start getting more proactive, right? So now when I get in my car, it could flash to me some missed calls or voicemails that I have so that if I want to return that call, I'm reminded of that, right? Or, if it knows that in my calendar I have an appointment at 7 p.m. and it's 6 p.m. or 6:30 and I haven't left, and it also knows information about where I'm trying to go and knows the traffic, it could actually send me a notification and let me know, hey, you're probably going to be late if you don't leave now. And it's very interesting when the product starts getting more proactive. I think that, we're going to see a switch. I mean, I see it a lot with my kids, that, in the same way that when the screens became touch screens and people felt that every screen is touchable, and you see a little kid and they see an old TV and they try to touch on the screen and the screen doesn't work. I think that people are going to get used to talking to their products and expecting that the product will understand what you're saying in a natural way and help you get it done. And I think that we're going to see that evolution from basically understanding your commands, what you want to do and help you get it done, to getting very proactive, personal, and more helpful, so anticipating your needs and the things that you're trying to accomplish.
So you've got Assistant on your phone, home, and now driving. Where do you see assistants going in the future?
So it's a great question. I think that a personal assistant needs to be with you. So of course, a lot of the work that the team has been doing is making sure that the product is available where you need it the most. I don't know necessarily that it's going to go to different places, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we spend time in our homes, we spend time at work, we spend time in our cars, we spend time with our phones, maybe too much time with our phones. But if the product can always be with you, then it can help you fulfill some of those things. I think that in the future, what I'm hoping it helps, I mean, if you think about the areas where people spend time trying to get things done, but they wish that, when I think about it, right, when you want to go to a restaurant, the act of going to the restaurant and having a nice meal is awesome, right? Maybe calling to make a reservation is not that great, but if the product can start doing those things for you and remove that load from you, it becomes incredibly useful. So I think that if you think about more of those tasks that people are trying to get done and help you anticipate it, find that ticket for an event for you that you want to go to, making that appointment for you, and getting predictive about those things, then the product becomes extremely magical.
Before you leave us, are there any hints you can give us to find some Easter eggs in the Assistant?
Sure. We recently launched a new voice for the Assistant with John Legend, and it's pretty cool. And if you turn the voice to the John Legend voice for the Assistant and you ask it to sing a song for you or sing Happy Birthday, you're going to hear John Legend singing for you. And it's actually pretty cool.
That. Thank you, Manuel, so much for sharing your insight.
So great to be here.
Welcome to the Boardwalk at I.O. This space really captures the festival vibe, and it's one thing that makes I.O. special. This year, we collaborate with a bunch of artists to combine our tech with their talents. This interactive easel takes my doodles and makes them museum-quality works of art. So what I've drawn here is obviously Starry Night. That's my job. This art installation is called Mosaic Virus. It uses machine learning to create flowers whose appearance is based on the fluctuation of Bitcoin. They're pretty nice. I kind of want some of these in my backyard. I'm here with Kenrick and Alex, and they curated all of the awesome works of art here on the Boardwalk. Kenrick, please tell us about them and how you curated them.
Well, we've been working with artists for a while, and particularly in the work I do, working with artists that use artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so we wanted to highlight some collaborative projects by artists working with machine learning that provide representation of natural phenomena, like on Formative's piece here, Meandering River, or Anna Riddler's mosaic virus with tulips. So we really wanted people to see images of themselves in collaboration with nature through machine learning.
Very cool. And you alluded to this, Kendrick. This is an ongoing collaboration, not just happening at I.O. Alex, can you tell us a little bit more about the history behind that?
Yeah, so for the last 2 years, this is the third year that we've been doing an arts program at I.O. And every year it grows, and it feels great to see how there's support for this kind of presentation at an event like this. And I think that this year we're changing the format a little bit, and we're seeing how essentially bringing the artwork on a place like the Boardwalk is allowing a deeper interaction with them. And I think the audience is really responding really well to this kind of work, like Formative's piece.
Alex and Kendrick, thank you so much for sharing and making this happen. It's really a lovely place to hang out.
Thank you.
Hey guys!
Thanks, Emily. On this end of the boardwalk, I'm joined by former attorney, human rights activist, and inclusive designer Elise Roy. Elise, thanks for coming to I.O. Live.
Thanks for having me here.
For those that don't know your backstory, you lost your hearing at age 10.
I did.
Which is why we're going to be using Google's Live Transcribe app to make our conversation happen in real time. Can you tell us what it means to be an inclusive designer?
Absolutely. So, an inclusive designer is someone that helps organizations solve problems from the perspective of people with disabilities or difference. It's based on this human-centered design tenet that when we solve for extremes, we often develop better solutions than when we solve for average. And that might seem kind of counterintuitive because the greatest number of people tend to hover around average. But the problem is that no one actually is average. And so when we solve for average, then, and people are a little bit over here, a little bit there, there's this gap between what we create and what their needs are that we're not meeting. If instead we solve for those extremes, then we've already covered that gap. And we've created something that's a lot more adaptable and a lot more innovative.
That makes so much sense to me. And it reminds me of something else that you've talked about, which is human-centered design. Can you define that term for us as well?
Sure. So human-centered design is a philosophy and a methodology for problem solving. It's based on a lot of things that we've taken from the design realm, and it can be applied to almost every realm you could imagine, from international development to policy to the sciences to technology. And what differentiates it is its almost obsessive focus on designing around the human that we're trying to reach. So in the past, a lot of times we think that when we're trying to solve a problem, we want to get all the experts into this room and have them figure out how to solve it. The problem with that is they have one point of view, their own. So if, for example, there are a bunch of developers, they're probably going to create something that's very complex, and most of us don't, the so-called average people don't really understand. If instead we focus our process on the people we're trying to reach, then we develop something that fits their needs much better.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of empathy involved where you're trying to understand what their needs are. You're following them around in real life situations. You want to make sure that you're also answering the right problem. So many people are answering the wrong problem.
Yeah.
And then there's ideation, which is similar to brainstorming, but we use a lot of design methods to really get people thinking outside the box. It's a lot more powerful. We want people to throw out crazy ideas. We want as many as they can think of. And then we prototype, which is a lo-fi solution that we know we're going to mess up with, you know? But that's the purpose of it, is to fail and to learn from it. And then the last step is to implement it and make sure that it's sustainable.
I love this idea of having practices and mechanisms for helping experts get out of their perspective, because when you bring an expert in the room, you're asking them to give their expert opinion, not their general opinion, and that's so focused most of the time, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's also why I love inclusive design, because that brings people even further outside of their tunnel vision.
I see. This reminds me of another quote of yours, if I may. You said, when we look for gaps of exclusion, we identify opportunities for great change. And I find this really inspiring. Do you have some examples that you can share where you see this really clearly?
Definitely. I can give you some Google-centric examples. So, Google's chief internet evangelist, Vint Cerf, he created email for his deaf wife. And as you know, that's become a huge thing that everyone loves. But he didn't see it as something that would be applied to everyone initially. And most people didn't think of it in that way at first, because we had the capabilities to talk to people on the phone. And that was the way that business was run. But slowly, we realized that people also have this desire to not have to keep talking to someone on the phone. And they want to, say something real quick and be done with it. And sometimes we also have this desire to formulate our thoughts before we communicate with someone. And email filled those hidden desires. Another example is YouTube. They inserted closed captioning capabilities into their media player, which was really amazing at the time. And closed captioning was originally created for the deaf so that they could follow along. But what YouTube realized was that if a video has closed captioning capabilities, then the likelihood of it being watched to the end was increased by 80%.
Wow.
Yes.
Is that because there's so many situations where you have the sound off?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the reason why designing for inclusion works is because we find ourselves as we go about our lives in these momentary situations where we have a momentary disability. So we might be carrying something and we lose the use of our arms. If we're in a bar, closed captioning is helpful because we can't hear. And if we are in our office and we want to sneak in a Facebook video, closed captioning is helpful. So.
That's awesome. Those are really great examples, and I love how it's really connecting this idea of designing for the extremes, and then it becomes more usable for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really great. Elise, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your gifts and your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, it's time for another break because the next sessions are about to begin. You're watching I/O Live.
Welcome back to I/O Live, your ticket to an insider's view of O'19. I'm Emily Fortuna. If you like games, you're going to enjoy what's coming next. Let's send it over to Todd for a look at the Mecha Hamster demo.
I am here at the Gaming Garage with Darren Hilton, checking out what is sure to be the next great hit game, Mecha Hamster. Hi, Darren.
Hey Todd, how you doing?
Good. Now, the last time I saw Mecha Hamster, it did not have this multiplayer component that I'm seeing going on behind me. What's going on here?
So this is a project that we did with Cloud, and so we decided to incorporate the Agonis and OpenMatch open source projects into Mecha Hamster.
What are those? Start with OpenMatch.
So OpenMatch is a framework for connecting clients to our game servers.
Gotcha. It's meaning that like if you've got a bunch of players that want to play a multiplayer game together, I would use Open Match to help connect them based on what kind of criteria?
Based on the criteria that you lay out, their skill level, that kind of thing. You can go in and kind of dig in and give that criteria.
So that kind of helps solve the problem of like finding people that actually want to play
Exactly.
with like maybe the same skill level or are in the same general area, have good network latency.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah, you don't want to have that experience where you have low-level players being connected with high-level players and then getting a bad game experience.
Yes. And then Agonis. What is that?
So Agonis is a multiplayer gaming server application that's built on Kubernetes.
Okay. And so I know there's a lot of multiplayer game servers out there. What makes Agonis special?
So Agonis is special in that it can scale to the needs of your game. So if you wanted to add, thousands of servers or,
you mean
or more.
when Mecha Hamster becomes a mega hit, we've got millions and millions of people playing.
And we totally expect that to happen.
Of course.
It's going to happen. The other thing too is that it's cloud agnostic. It's an open source project. You can run it on any cloud service you want. You can run it locally. You can run it in your own on-prem in your own service. Yep, on-prem.
Great. And so because it's based on Kubernetes, it can scale to sort of basically until I run out of servers or until Google runs out of servers, which is going to take a while.
Exactly. And everything you need for that server is contained in that Kubernetes container.
Gotcha. And so now with a dedicated game server like Agonis, I know like sometimes in multiplayer games, particularly mobile ones, you'll have the clients talking to each other directly in like a peer-to-peer network. What makes a dedicated game server better? So
a dedicated game server gives you the added level of security in that that's a sort of truth. And the scalability is another thing, so you can scale to however you want it to scale to the needs of your game. And a peer-to-peer network is relatively limited in that, generally limited to a smaller amount of clients.
But you can't have 100 clients all talking to each other. That would just, that poor one client that's acting as your like server for that episode.
Exactly, somebody could mess with that. It could lose its game state. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with that.
Gotcha. And I'm guessing latency is probably more likely to be consistent because you're not relying on like that one client to be the server for the entire game.
Exactly.
Gotcha. All right. And then I couldn't help but notice you were wearing a very stylish Firebase t-shirt. So Firebase is integrated in this game as well.
Exactly. So we're using a bunch of Firebase products. We're using authentication, cloud messaging, remote config, real-time database, and Crashlytics.
Oh, Crashlytics. That's new, right?
New as of GDC, yes.
All right. And is this running on Unity?
It's run on Unity.
And so now Crashlytics for Unity will actually let me, as a developer, find out if there are crashes in my game and where they're happening.
Exactly. So you can go through, find your stack trace, and then narrow in on the bugs that are affecting your game.
Gotcha. And have you found lots of crashes in Mecha Hamster?
Of course not.
Oh, of course, because it is solid
rock
code,
solid
code that never crashes.
Yeah.
And with remote config, I know kind of one of the fun things of remote config, especially as a game developer, is like if you find some level is too hard or some setting is too difficult, you can basically kind of tweak that, and all your clients get updated on the fly.
You can turn that, and you can roll out to all your clients, or you can roll out to a segment of players as well.
Like for sort of running an A/B test?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
You can test that, and if it's stable, then you can roll out to everyone as well.
If I wanted to try out Mecha Hamster at home, how would I be able to do that?
You can download the single-player game from the Play Store or from the App Store.
All right. And last question, were any hamsters harmed in the making of Mecha Hamster?
I believe not.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's always good to hear. And with that, we're going to take you over to Paige Bailey, who's going to tell you more about how to make your apps better. So take it away, Paige.
Thanks so much, Todd. I'm Paige Bailey, a TensorFlow developer advocate, and I'm here today with Doug Stevenson, who's going to tell us all about the latest and greatest in Firebase.
Yeah.
So show us what you have planned, Doug.
Okay, so turns out Firebase has a bunch of products that help you ensure a high quality of your app, which is very important for a lot of app developers. Every app developer always has to be able to diagnose crashes in their app,
Yes.
as you know. So Firebase has a tool called Crashlytics. With Crashlytics, The integration is fairly simple. Add a plugin, add a build dependency to your build, and it just starts monitoring crashes. You don't have to write any lines of code. So the app is crashing. You can see that it's rather problematic for our users, but it turns out the engineers made a good decision, and they put this new home screen experiment behind a remote config flag.
So tell me a little bit more about what remote config is.
Right, so remote config lets you define key value pairs in the Firebase console, and then you can publish those to your app without having to actually write any lines of code in your app. So it gets them all almost immediately as you change them in the console. So the idea here is we have a new parameter. It's called home screen experiment enabled, and the default value is true. So this is what's enabling the new home screen experiment that's also causing devices to crash. Now what we want to do here is ask our engineer and say, well, our engineer thinks that it's a translation issue. So we've narrowed it down to Spanish speakers who are using the app on Android. So we can define a new condition here for this flag and say for Spanish speakers who are using Android, what we can do is disable the home screen experiment. So we'll set it to false for all of them, and all the other users can retain the value true. So now once this is configured, what we'll do is publish this to our app, and the app internally will use Firebase Remote Config to fetch parameters, pull out that home screen flag, and enable the home screen experiment if it's been enabled for this device.
And it's amazing that you're able to narrow in with such laser focus what the problem could be, and then to change it without altering a single line of code.
Right. So it's remotely fixing your app in some cases. And we do recommend that people publish their apps with new features hidden behind remote config flags so you can toggle them on and off for cases like this.
Right.
So we'll publish our new changes to remote config. We can see that the app is no longer crashy.
I see no more sad faces.
No more sad faces, and the number of crash-free users has gone up, so we've reduced the crash rate down to below 1%, which is really good. So a successful experiment.
That's amazing. So launch into the next demo. What do we have next?
Yeah, so another thing that developers need to be able to do is compare what their users prefer.
A/B testing.
Perform an A/B test, yes. So what we can do is use Firebase A/B testing to create and run an experiment. So what we can do in the console here is create an experiment with a name, targeting half of our users with some metrics that we want to track, and we're going to use Firebase Remote Config again to configure this experiment. So for the control group, dark mode will not be enabled. And for the variant group, we will enable this experiment. So remote config is going to tell half the devices to run this experiment and half the devices not. And we'll compare the metrics on that and see how it performs.
And all of this is done through the console?
Yes, all of this is done through the console. So we can see here our experiment is ready to run. We're especially interested in 15-day retention. So we're going to use that as the way to determine whether or not this experiment is successful. So what we can do is start this experiment. Bear in mind that remote config is being used to pull out that Boolean flag and enable dark mode only for those half of all devices that are configured to use it. And what we're going to do is run this A/B test, and that's going to push to our devices, and you can see some of our devices are running dark mode and some are running light mode, and they're switching between the two.
I think I like the light mode.
You like the light? Okay, I'm partial to dark mode, but
well, let's see what the users say.
The users get to decide based on our goal metrics.
Oh man.
Yeah, it looks like dark mode is the leader in this, and we can see the exact mark on the retention that this experiment had.
This is amazing. I was a data scientist in a previous life, and historically we would have to use, weeks of training and custom code and configurations and track all of the metrics and visualizations ourselves, but this looks like you could do it just by clicking a couple of buttons.
That entire engine is basically hidden by Firebase A/B testing. So we can use remote config and then push it out to all of our users. All right. The last thing that a lot of app developers are concerned about is performance.
And probably the most important one.
Yeah, and everyone wants their pages to load fast and their screens to be snappy. So what we can do is measure that with Firebase Performance Monitoring. Now, with Firebase Performance Monitoring, you put basically one SDK in your app and it automatically collects things. And it goes out to your users and it measures the behavior of your app on your users' devices. But if you do need to measure something in particular, like say the load screen time, what you can do is create a trace.
And so tell me what a trace is.
So a trace is something in Firebase Performance Monitoring that measures the duration of something. So here we're creating a new trace, we're starting a timer, then after we load and all of our image and text for the screen, we'll stop the timer. And that becomes our metric. So that's going to get sent to the Firebase Performance Monitoring dashboard. So we're going to run this code on all of our users' devices, collect this metric, and now what you can see here is the trend over time is that 555 milliseconds of load time.
That is way too long.
It's half a second, but it still feels like an eternity and when you click the button. So what we need to do is bring this down. Now it turns out this app's been configured with Firebase Remote Config to have a configurable image quality. So the idea is to speed up the performance of our app, we'll ratchet down the quality. Maybe that'll make the images smaller and faster to load. So what we can do is create a condition for this and say that half of our users get a reduced quality. So when we finalize this, half of our users are going to get the default, the other half are going to get this reduced image quality, and then we can compare this in the dashboard. Now, again, we do need a few lines of code to enable this in remote config. When that's done, we can collect this information on our users' devices exactly as they're using it and come up with results. So we were able to reduce the time to 111 milliseconds. And our engineer thinks this is a good idea.
Much faster, and I agree with them. And it also looks like you can drill down into the data by device.
Yeah. So right now we're slicing this by app version, but you can also use other characteristics of the device and the user to determine what the performance is for very specific conditions.
That's amazing, and I love being able to see the visualizations just out of the box.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing all of this great functionality with Firebase. I can't wait to try out an A/B test.
And thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and back to you.
The Sandbox is a great place to check out a huge range of new tech and hardware. Coming up later in the show, we'll take you back to the Sandbox and highlight even more demos. You won't want to miss it. But first, a quick break, and after the next session, we'll see you back here for more I/O Live.
Welcome back to I/O Live. If you missed any part of the festival, catch up at g.co/io/live.
Timothy, how was the festival last night?
It was awesome. We went exploring. Check it out.
Hey, Timothy, we should go after dark. I want to go dancing.
What?
I want to go dancing.
What?
I want to go dancing.
All right, let's do it. I'm an enormous space nerd. Do you have anything space themed?
We have an awesome spaceship tattoo that's really cool.
I'm in.
I could do it right here. Is that cool?
Sure.
We got a unicorn. Oh, okay. So it says eats over there, and there's probably food.
Oh yeah, you hungry?
The cones of meat. There's advice?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
What you do is you ask a question.
What will I have for lunch tomorrow? So like, I think I want a salad, but I really want pizza.
Hi, Caroline. Oh, that's so good.
Thank you.
I'm a little dusty up here. It won't come off! It won't come off!
I don't know. This might be my new job. Timothy, thank you so much for hanging out with me during my first I/O After Dark.
Are you kidding? This was tons of fun. I mean, this is what makes it a developer festival.
That looked like a lot of fun. If you're here on site, you'll definitely want to check out After Dark before you head home. Now let's check in with Todd for an AR Sandbox demo that is out of this world.
Hello, I/O viewers. Well, what better way to follow up an interview with a real-life astronaut than to check out a virtual spaceship. So I am here with Amanda in the augmented reality booth, and Amanda, you're going to show me something cool from the NASA website.
Yeah. So here you can see on the NASA website, they're showing 3D models of their rovers. Here we have the Curiosity rover, and they're actually using the Model VR web component to put that 3D asset on their website.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, you said it's a web component, so do they need to like NPM install something to get it working? Or?
It's actually markup, so very simple to just put on your website. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, that's very cool. And this 3D model, like what file format is that?
Yeah, so we recommend using GLTF, but it also supports USDZ and GLB.
Okay, and is that something most like commercial 3D modeling tools will export to?
You should be able to export to that easily.
I see you got that little button down there in the bottom right. What does that do?
Yeah, so this actually is the new feature that we're launching at I/O today. And what it allows you to do is open up what we call Scene Viewer. So Scene Viewer allows you to take this 3D models and actually place it in your real world space.
Whoa, no way.
So here you can see the Curiosity rover at scale.
Wow, it's like there's a real life spaceship here in the booth, but not really. It's just actually very nicely rendered. It kind of fooled me.
Yep, and so you can actually manipulate this in your own space. So you'll see it at full scale, but you can also shrink it down so that it can actually fit in your living room.
Ah, okay, yes. So if I want to put the Curiosity rover on my coffee table, I now can just by shrinking it down a little bit.
Yep.
And so how did you get the size specification? Like apparently this was built real life, or this is showing it in real life and you're able to shrink it down?
Yeah, so NASA, when they built the 3D model, decided to build it at scale. Okay. And so that's the model we're referencing.
Gotcha. Very cool. And so if I'm a developer and I want to turn my model viewer component into this cool scene viewer augmented reality experience, what do I have to do?
Yeah, so there's no need to build an app for this. Okay. All you actually do is go into the markup and you add the AR attribute, which is literally the letters A and R. So super simple to do.
I type 2 letters and I get all that?
Yes.
All right, well that sounds easy. I think even I could do that.
Yeah.
Well, I could use a little pick-me-up after that demo. Let's head on over here and see if I can find some caffeine. Whew. Hey, Ashish.
How are you doing, Todd?
I am doing well. I'm already excited for this demo because I see there's an espresso machine here. So walk me through today.
All right, so what we're doing in here is we're showing an espresso machine coming to life in AR using this technology called augmented images.
Okay.
That's part of AR Core. You want to give it a spin?
Let's check it out.
All right, so as soon as you look at this marker.
So you're showing the image there.
Yep.
And it's telling you to look around.
And now it's annotated the machine with information about its features.
You can see the little pieces coming to life.
Yep. It's telling you about the dose control grinding.
I need my doses controlled.
Yeah, and the precise temperature. What would you do without that? And you could actually see an espresso being made here.
Oh, fantastic.
This is like a really powerful way for manufacturers to show features of their product, which are otherwise just lost in text. And this really makes the product come to life.
Yeah,
in a really powerful way. And so this triggers the experience once it recognizes. And now what happens once this image is recognized, it starts establishing a correspondence between the phone and the image.
So the phone always knows exactly where it is
with respect to the image. And when I say it establishes a correspondence in terms of a pose, that's position and orientation. So position in like X direction, in Y direction, and in Z direction. And also the orientation in 3 degrees, like pitch, yaw, and roll. Yep. So the phone knows exactly where it is with respect to the marker.
Gotcha. So this kind of works best in places where you sort of have strict control over like the environment in which this image is going to appear and what's around it.
Yes, as if you're trying to augment real things, you want to make sure that the image is rigid with respect to the thing that you're trying to augment.
Gotcha. But if you just want the image itself specifically to come to life, that's all you need.
Absolutely. So think about like a scenario where you're at a store and you want to see what's inside a box. So you could use an app to look at the box. It would recognize the box as a marker, and you could actually have a sneak peek at like what's inside the box.
Oh, okay. So like the model could like pop out of the box and I could see like exactly what my waffle iron or toaster or I need stuff for my kitchen. That's all going to look
without even opening it up.
And then I won't get yelled at by shopkeepers. Well, thank you very much, Ashish. I learned a lot about augmented reality today. I'm going to grab this espresso. Oh, it's not real. But the coffee beans are. Can I eat the coffee beans?
Yes, you can.
All right, I'm going to take a few coffee beans to go.
You can take the coffee beans.
Thank you very much, live stream. I'm going to go get caffeinated.
Thanks, Todd. Got a comment about our AR sandbox or anything else you've seen on the show? Make sure to share it using hashtag #O'19. Also, here's a quick shout out to the more than 500 extended viewing parties from 60 countries joining us on the live stream.
Hi from I.O. Extended Boulder. This is Google Seattle's I.O. Extended. Hey everybody!
Great to have you along for the ride. Time for us to take a break as the next sessions will begin shortly. We'll be back in about an hour with more sandbox demos. You're watching I.O. Live.
Welcome back to I.O. Live. I'm Emily Fortuna.
And I'm Timothy Jordan. We're joined by special guests Eve Ekman, Director of Training at the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley, and collaborator William Russell, Creative Director of Monum Berlin Center for Spatial Sound. Welcome, both of you. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
So tell me, you've created this really excellent art installation here at Google I.O. Why make it here?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate. William's artistic vision wanted to build upon a project that my dad and I had collaborated on about 3 years ago, and this was an atlas of emotion. The inspiration for this came from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is so passionate about all of us finding our way to a calm mind. He thought maybe we need a map to get there. So the idea was to take the best of what we know from emotion research and create a way for people to actually visualize emotion. And then here at I.O., we are giving people an opportunity to know what it's like to experience emotion. So it seems so simple to be aware of our emotions, and yet for most of us, we avoid, suppress, deny anything that doesn't feel good, which actually doesn't help us understand ourselves or understand others. So this is just one more portal and way for people to get into these ideas of emotion awareness, well-being, empathy, connection, and compassion.
That sounds really powerful. William, could you describe the work? What is it going to be like for those of us that can't be there?
Yeah, well, the piece is being created using a sound technology built by 4D Sound. So the experience is there's about 85 speakers spread out evenly throughout the room. And the idea is that it creates sounds more naturally, more the way that we perceive them in the real world, how we've evolved to perceive them, which allows us to kind of connect more deeply to people's awareness of sound and how this interacts with their body. But the idea in this piece is actually we have artist Amanda Gregory who will be singing and sort of theatrically performing and controlling elements of the sound in the space, as well as being triggered by the soundscape that is around her. So the idea is she's actually in real time trying to embody as much as possible the experience around her and respond to this in a way and just be fully open and aware to her emotional landscape at the time through this natural sounds, but also tones and frequencies that we've learned have, certain effects on your emotional awareness, essentially. There is an area of universal things that we're finding that do stimulate generally everyone in a similar way. But then there's a mysterious, other, more complex world that we're looking forward to explore further as well. So, yeah.
This idea of kind of paying attention to our emotions and understanding those triggering states, I think is really relevant to us and our audience in software development. We were talking a little bit earlier about this, and I think it's really interesting that software development of any sufficient complexity requires lots of people, and therefore the most interesting software problems are actually people problems. And a lot of that dynamic is governed by our emotions. How we react with each other, how we react with like this big thing that we're all trying to do together. And I think in that way, it's really important for us to study emotional intelligence. And that's, I think, why I'm really excited about this work being here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I've been a trained emotion scientist maybe since I was born, since my dad is the founder of this field, Paul Ekman, and really mapped the human face. So how do we recognize these universal language of what I'm showing you right now? This little anger versus I'm feeling really good. And when we can understand how to interpret these signals, we have a lot of capacity for clear communication. We are born with this skill, not only to read faces, but to ourselves kind of show what we're feeling. And then, as William was saying, at an embodied level, we resonate to the emotions of others. So even if you're trying your hardest, like actually this project for this team, we don't need emotions here. We just got to be efficient. Good luck. We are hardwired head to toe for emotion. We absolutely have no control over what triggers us emotionally. We have some capacity to recognize, okay, I'm feeling frustrated, annoyed, or anxious, and then respond more constructively. So the whole goal with emotional intelligence isn't to change from lots of emotions to no emotions. It's to understand and identify what is the message this emotion is telling you, and then respond in a way that's the most effective. And really and constructive, and really that's empathy, right? That is an ability to recognize what's happening to another and then identify what's the best response. This is a core value of humans, and without it, we wouldn't have survived as a species. So how do we harness that for creativity, productivity, and engagement?
So I think you've already gotten a little bit at this, but if there's one thing that you hope that attendees or viewers would take away from your work and the general trend of your future work, what would it be?
Yeah, I bet we both have a different response. I think I would be really excited for people to become deeply interested in their emotions, and not at I'm gonna fix this thinking way, but oh my gosh, my emotions exist in my body. When I feel angry, there's tightness in my jaw and constriction in my chest, and when I feel anxious, wow, there's some like shoulder. And just that level of awareness, what we call a meta-awareness or metacognitive awareness, means you have some space away from the experience and you might not be quite so reactive.
And William?
Yeah, and I mean, the part that I agree with all of that, but the idea is that, yeah, we want to create these experiences so that they can feel these things as deeply as possible and to really be able to learn them through their use of their whole body. Because the idea is not that there's good or bad emotions, they're equal to each other, they all have their role. And for me, this has been an incredible learning process. It's just beginning. I mean, this is experiment 1, so I'm learning a lot from Eve about what is the real science that we have and what is still to be explored. And I think this is going to be a constantly evolving process. I mean, it came from a discussion between the Dalai Lama and Paul Ekman originally, and it will continue to be a discussion because this is such a rich territory to explore.
Awesome. William, Eve, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, and I just really want to thank whatever mastermind behind this conference wanted to do AI for good.
Yeah.
I mean, as a representative of the Greater Good Science Center, of course I believe in that, but I think it's so nice to infuse this experience with how technology can help us and really support us in being the humans we want to be. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Now, let's check in with our sandbox team for more demos.
Hi, I'm Wayne Pekarski, and I'm here today at the Assistant Sandbox area of Google I/O 2019. And we're in the smart home area, and I have Carl Vogel here from the product team. And what we're going to be talking about today is smart home and what it means for developers. So Carl, what is the developer story and what is smart home all about?
Smart home is a way for users to control all the connected devices in their house. Everything from smart lights and smart thermostats to even smart plugs and even vacuum cleaners now.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, what does it mean for developers? Can anyone build for the smart home?
Exactly. So we have over 3,500 brands that go ahead and integrate with Google Assistant and are growing rapidly. Anyone can go into the Actions on Google console and integrate their smart devices into Google Assistant such that users can control them with just the assistant and their voice.
Okay, cool. So this year at Google I/O 2019, my understanding is we've announced their local home SDK.
Yeah.
So what's that about, and what's new for developers, and why are they interested in this?
It's great. So developers today integrate with the Google Assistant via the Smart Home API, which is a cloud-to-cloud integration.
Okay.
And cloud-to-cloud integrations naturally have some amount of latency and reliability. So we want to provide a method for developers to process those smart home intents locally on Google Home speakers and Google Nest displays, such that we can turn on and off the lights and other things much faster and with higher reliability.
We do it directly by skipping the cloud, basically.
Yeah, we skip that developer's cloud, and they can replicate their business logic there and run it on our devices.
Okay, well, what excites me the most is that here at I/O we have this fantastic demo that we've built.
It's a great
So
demo.
we have this great train set here that's designed to demonstrate local versus cloud execution. So I guess there's this button here that I really want to press.
Give me
So-
1 second if I
Okay.
can, Wayne.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is this is the local network and this is the internet once the query leaves the user's home. We have the life of a local query and a life of a cloud query.
Okay.
So with that, go ahead and push
All
the
right, so
button.
we're going to race some trains here that they're going to go around and then these light bulbs are going to come on when they're done. Okay, here we go.
Here we have the user saying, turn on the lights.
Okay, great.
And we see these two queries going to the assistant server, and they're both going to be processed in the same way. And via the Smart Home API, they go ahead and we send that to the partner cloud or developer cloud, where they go ahead and process that intent and ultimately then fulfill it. If we know the device is locally controllable, then we'll send that command back down to the Google Home device, where we'll then pull up the developer's JavaScript to process that intent, where they can communicate with their light and look, turn it on.
That one's done. This
There
one's
we
still
go.
coming via the
Yeah, it's
cloud.
still coming in. It's going to get
And there we go.
Yep. So what this does, again, highlights the increased reduced latency that we can get with the local home SDK and local operations.
Well, this is awesome. I really love this train set. I've always loved trains since I was a kid, so this is a really fun demo. So where can developers go to learn more about the local home SDK?
Yeah, g.co/localhomesdk is our landing page. We also are giving a talk Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. called Local Technologies for the Smart Home. So if you're interested, check it out and learn more.
And it's also on YouTube as well, so people can
Exactly,
check that
for
out
all
too later
those
on. Yeah,
watching.
awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne.
And thanks for watching the video. This was the Assistant Sandbox area, so we'll see you next time.
Thanks, team. If you want to check out any part of I/O, go to g.co/io/live. After these next sessions, Chet Haas will join us on set for a conversation on Android. And we've got more from our sandbox. You won't want to miss it. You're watching I/O Live from the heart of Silicon Valley.
Welcome back. Our final guest of the day is Chet Haas, whom you already know if you're an Android developer, though you might not know that he's also the author of Round and Holy, an homage to donuts. Chet, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So we already talked with Dan Galpin about all the announcements that were in the keynote.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we can go kind of more big picture. Is that okay?
You're saying fast forward, don't talk about that stuff, we already heard it. You're boring me. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, I wouldn't have put it that way.
Okay.
Anyway, Kotlin first.
Kotlin first.
What does that mean? And sort of like, how do we get here and what does it mean for developers moving forward?
Sure.
And
So-
remember, big picture.
Big picture. So the big picture is, we announced Kotlin a couple of years ago. It turns out people really like it.
Well,
A lot
that's
of
good.
developers really liked it at that time anyway. What we announced was, yeah, we understand you like it and we're going to support it as an official language, so it's a good thing. So people continued to use it more and more. We agree with everyone, they should be using it more and more. And now we want to invest in it more and more and offer more capabilities for them to use it more and more. Do you like that phrase? I like it a lot. I'm using it a lot. So let me give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
So we have this set of APIs called Jetpack, and increasing a lot of the stuff that we're doing in Jetpack, instead of including some of the stuff that's coming out at I/O, is going to be coming out first with Kotlin capabilities. Things like coroutine integration into Room, also coroutine deep integration into Lifecycle and live data to make things easier. Kotlin only or Kotlin first libraries like the new Jetpack Compose that we just announced we're going to be developing in the open today. So we're going to be doing much more Kotlin stuff for Kotlin developers outside of Android as well. We're also investing in more training and docs and sample code, things like, let's see, with JetBrains we're doing Kotlin Everywhere. It's this global series of events, conference type educational events. There's also a new Udacity course. I think it's developing Android applications with Kotlin. Just launched all of those episodes in that course. So just a lot more training in general to help people learn and use Kotlin more, because we think they should be doing that.
I think one of the interesting discoveries I made the other day is that there are developers now that started as Kotlin Android developers.
That blows my mind.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is, anyway, that's cool. You've been on Android for a while now. And
Oh, I was supposed to fill that in. So I joined actually 9 years ago this month.
9 years, okay.
Yeah,
So that's
2010.
Sometime. In that time, you've, I'm sure, had really unique perspective on everything that's happened in the developer space for Android. So here's two relatively specific questions for you. One, what's something that's super exceptional that you didn't expect when you started working on Android? And what's something that you still want to make better after all this time?
So super exceptional. There's a bunch of things to choose from. There's all kinds of interesting features and development. Software is cool because new stuff happens all the time. I'm going to pick Jetpack because I feel very close to this because a lot of that work was coming out of the team that I was working with, the toolkit team, where we had all these capabilities in the support library. Worst thing about the support library, we called it support library, but it was actually a plural set of libraries. So even the naming of it was messed up, right? So we had app compat, and then we had like specific utilities.
Yeah.
Recycler view was in there, like all these different things. It was a sandbox of stuff, all very useful. What we're doing with Jetpack is sort of putting it together into cohesive parts, right? So there are these modules that you can use either together or separately. We're shipping it in a more robust and predictable manner. Like, we made sense out of the APIs. We refactored it with a namespace that made sense. Like, we took a lot of the capabilities that we had and we put it into a more sensible form that solves one of the biggest problems with Android for developers, which is how do I develop for multiple versions of Android, because that is the developer reality. Right? So the ability to actually write to a single API and have it work on releases all the way back to API 14 right now, I think is huge. And for us to be able to do that in a way where they can make sense out of those APIs and the documentation and the Maven artifacts that they have to get, I think is really huge. Okay. What was the other question?
Something that you still want to make better.
Everything. I want to make everything better. This is software. We have bugs. We have features we want to work on. We have APIs that we regret because that's how APIs work.
Yeah.
So honestly, everything can get better all the time. I feel good about where we're at, especially given where we were coming from. But I also feel like we have a lot further to go.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so your Twitter profile, which I looked at recently.
It must be the truth.
On research for this interview. It says you're the lead for the Android UI toolkit.
Yes.
So what's that like?
So the first thing that tells me is that I need to go update my Twitter profile.
This is my subtle way of saying
that. It is out of date. So I was the lead for the Android UI toolkit team. So when I joined in 2010, I joined the UI toolkit team. I worked on animations and graphics and performance and UI stuff, and eventually managed the team for about the last 5 years as the team was growing, doing things like Jetpack and architecture components and all the normal platform toolkit stuff. And then about 3 months ago, I made a change and moved to, it's a team called Developer Relations. I don't know if you know what that is.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I made that switch, dropped all my management responsibilities on the floor, and I'm now a developer advocate in DevRel.
Well, that's great.
I think so.
Welcome to the light side or dark side?
I consider it the light side because you know what? New jobs always look better, and then they become old jobs.
Well, let's hope this one stays the light side for some time.
No, I'm excited about it. So the way I look at the job change is I now get to do my hobby as my real job. I was doing DevRel stuff. I was doing a bunch of outreach.
Don't tell them.
Why? My bosses won't watch it. It doesn't matter. But I've been doing DevRel since I got here, right? I really love doing outreach stuff with developers. But I always felt guilty about that because that wasn't actually my day job, and now it is.
Now it is. Your welcome world. Okay. Something else that you do that I want to mention is the ADB podcast.
Yes.
The Android Developers Backstage.
Yes.
So for the handful of people watching that haven't subscribed to that podcast
Wait, what?
yet, it could be a couple. What episode is your favorite that they should start with?
Okay, I'm going to start by saying they are all my children, and there is no favorite among them. But if I had to pick, I would go way back in the archives to back when our audio quality, frankly, was very poor. So you're going to have to suffer through it. It's going to sound like one of those 1930s, just past the talkie transition movies. But we talked to Anwar, who was at that time managing the art team. We talked to him about how garbage collectors work. And it was so fascinating. So my favorite thing about doing ADB is we get to learn how stuff works. We are not talking to people about stuff that we know. We're talking about stuff that we don't, by definition. Like, I'd like to learn more about treble or art or Android Studio or performance or whatever. We grab people on the team that know more about that stuff, and we have a conversation with them. So we had a conversation with Anwar, and we were so interested that our little 45-minute episode stretched onto an hour and a half before we ran out of words, and we cut it into 2 episodes. So probably my favorite because it best represents the, oh my gosh, do we get into the details part.
Okay. The art episode.
Art episodes.
Art
There's two.
episodes.
It's like 30s, somewhere in the 30s, and we're now at 112.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Chet.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, let's finish things off with some machine learning demos.
I'm Paige Bailey, a TensorFlow developer advocate, and I'm here today with Carla Bromberg, who's going to tell us all about our AI for social good efforts at Google. So tell us a little bit more about it, Carla.
Thanks, Paige. So for AI for Social Good, we aim to accelerate the application of machine learning to the world's biggest humanitarian and environmental issues. So today I'm going to tell you about some of the core research and engineering work we're doing at Google, more specifically, the Flood Forecasting Initiative.
Excellent. So is this the Flood Forecasting Initiative here?
Yes. So this is our demo, and so what this shows you is how we're using machine learning to help forecast and predict with better accuracy where floods are. So that way we can tell users when they're affected by floods. So earlier today in the keynote, we announced that we're rolling this out across a big portion of India. And I'm going to actually show you the simulation that we have for the demo here today. So this simulation is over the course of 48 hours. So if you look, you can see the water filling in. So this is without using machine learning. You can see that the accuracy is not very high. And you can see also that there's a lot of regions that are predicted to have floods. Now, with Google's flood forecasting effort, you can see as you both use the elevation maps that we've been working on that involve machine learning, as well as the models that we've made, how much more accurate it is. So if you're a person who lives in this region, like earlier it would have said it was flooding and then you would have to evacuate, or you would think that you would need to evacuate, but actually when you look at the more precise models, you'll actually be safe. So what we're hoping is, through this work, you can see the accuracy has gone up to 79%, and then when people get the alerts, they can have the information that they need. So as you can see on the phone, what they'll see moving into this monsoon season is when you search on Google or when you go into Google Maps and you're in an affected region, it'll give you some more information so that you know how to keep yourself and your family safe and whether or not you should evacuate and when you get an alert from Google Public Alerts.
This is fantastic. My academic background is very focused on quantitative hydrogeology and geospatial reasoning, and it's amazing to be able to see the kind of accuracy uptick that you get just by using machine learning with your elevation maps. This is really, really cool.
Thank you. We're really excited, and we hope we can save a lot of lives ahead of this monsoon season, and we're hoping to also expand this work across more countries. And for this, we're partnering really closely with the Indian government and many others on the ground and first responders. So hopefully we can help get the word out so that people can evacuate to safety.
Thank you so much for telling me about this work. And let's go and take a look at the other demo that we have from AI for Social Good that's very focused on whale detection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, I'm here with Julie Caccio, and she's here to tell me about this really cool whale demo.
Yeah, nice to meet you. This is a demo that's related to the bioacoustics project at Google. So we're a small team, part of the AI for Social Good effort. And so we've been training machine learning model to detect the presence of animals just by listening to the audio sound. This project in particular is a partnership with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is part of the American government. NOAA in particular has a network of microphones. These microphones have been set up in 2005, and they're in different spots in the Pacific Ocean. And in the end, it adds up to a lot of data. And so NOAA, the data said that NOAA in particular was interested in getting our help to analyze is close to 200,000 hours of audio. So as you can imagine, nobody can listen to the whole thing. It's just way too long. And that's where machine learning can be very helpful because with enough examples of sounds, machine learning can be applied to recognizing particular species of animals just by listening to the sound. And actually, if you think about animals that live in the ocean, almost all of them produce some sort of sounds. Even fish which can be surprising. Boats definitely make a lot of noise. They're not animals, but they make noise. Whales make sounds, dolphins do too. And so the question for us was, can we identify which species are present in audio data set and classify them using artificial intelligence? So this demo here that you can see represents 3 months worth of data from that data set I was telling you about. And what you can do is if you slide this tablet along the data, you can see that this is actually a spectrogram. So it's a visual representation of a sound. This is frequency over time for a particular sound. And so Noah provided some examples of humpback whale sounds, and then we trained a model to recognize the sounds automatically, and we used it on the whole pile of data that they had to tell them where the whales were and at which point in time. When the color is light blue, it means that our classifier has detected a whale. Would you like to listen to the whale songs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So getting lots of ocean sounds right now. Oh, I hear the whale.
You do? Awesome.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This is
Yeah,
lovely,
thank you.
and it's great that you're able to track whale migration patterns.
Yeah, thank you for your interest.
There are a few more sessions to come, and later tonight we're all going to rock out to the Flaming Lips as they integrate machine learning with their show. That'll be at 8:30 tonight Pacific time, so set your alarms for what's going to be an amazing performance. And come back here tomorrow for more special guests and demos. We'll see you then.